This is going to be utterly incomprehensible to anyone that doesn't know anything about Homestuck classpects, but I'll do my best to explain anyway. In extremely simple terms, Homestuck has a meta-analytical system within its narrative that gives characters a god-tier title based on their actions, role within the story, and character arcs. These titles are comprised of a class and an aspect. Aspects are, to me, more straightforward. They're tied to the symbology of a character, their origins, and their general ambitions. You get an isolated character tied to visual arts and new beginnings, probably space. You got a character closely tied to death, musical arts, and fate, probably time. These things aren't perfectly set in stone, of course, especially with Homestuck's extremely specific symbology. It's sometimes hard to translate aspects one-to-one within other narratives. Hashtag not all clowns are rage players. But I feel very confident in my ruling that Kris is a breath player and Susie is a mind player, mostly because I simultaneously pen them both down as thieves of their respective aspects. Now, don't let the same title fool you. Two characters of the same class can have wildly different character arcs depending on their aspect. I don't think Kris's arc is going to look anything like Vriska's, mostly because Vriska is a thief of light, her aspect being that of relevance, fortune, and knowledge. A thief is someone who lives on the outside looking in, is robbed of their aspect from the beginning and has to fight tooth and nail to get it back, to steal it back for themselves and their own means. So what about Kris and Susie? Well, breath as an aspect is about narratives and it's about autonomy, the story itself in its purest form. Protagonists are often breath players because their motivations are intrinsically tied to that of the plot, but I believe Kris is a thief because Deltarune is not their story in the beginning. It's handed to us and taken away from them, and in Kris ripping out their soul, they are stealing back the narrative of the game to reach their own goals. Susie is similar, even if less abstract, funnily enough. Mind is an aspect of choice and consequence, converging paths and being aware of what your place in the grand scheme of things is. Susie's a thief of mind, not just because she's the most aware out of all of her teammates about what her actions and inactions cause, but because she has to actively take these away from the player. She doesn't fuck with the grander story, that's not her aspect, but she absolutely messes up our and everybody else's ability to choose freely. She steals choice for herself. And again, I'm 100% certain of both of these. They're liable to change with the full release of the game. Hell, I'm actively thinking about whether Kris could be actually a witch rather than a thief. But my point about these two is that we understand their greater arcs just by the little we've seen so far. Which is why RALSEI'S has had me stumped for ages. I'm already certain his aspect is void. I mean, look at the guy, it doesn't get more void than this. But his class has had me spinning in circles for years. Like, okay, walk with me here. He's almost certainly not an active player, so we can rule out half the chart. How does his aspect influence him? It's tricky to know for sure with void players. He certainly isn't a bard because he isn't a loose cannon, and I'm tentatively ruling out Sylph until he has a third act breakdown. He isn't a rogue because we've seen the role of a rogue of void in a team dynamic before, and I don't think he qualifies. And he's not a seer of void because even if he's a know-it-all, he never takes things into his own hands. He's not a doer. And lastly, heir of void is an interesting possibility, but RALSEI'S at no point changes what the nothingness is. More like he acts as a conduit for its growth. And he can't be a knight because for all his secrecy, he's actually trying to find himself. Something knights aren't prone to doing on account of the fact that they hate thinking about themselves. So what, muse? You're telling me this 3 HP having son of a bitch can be something as powerful as a muse? No, my strategy has to be flawed from moment one. So going back to the drawing board, let's flip this on its head and give a different extrapolation. We've already concluded that he can't be any of the passive classes, which is bizarre to me. So what if he's an active class? Prince comes to mind first, but he's not nearly as forethinking as other princes we've known in the past. It's kind of hard to slot him into the role, but it's definitely a maybe because of the pure poetry of it all. Maybe a witch? Maybe the fountain itself is the source of his power, but if that were true, it'd imply a duality to his arc which we have no inkling of thus far. Mage? That's a cop-out. We don't know a lot about mages from a narrative standpoint, and RALSEI'S doesn't seem too concerned with understanding his aspect on a deeper level. What the fuck is left? Maid? He doesn't do shit on his own, but I guess he starts the narrative in a bad mental state of sorts. Page? Unless the RALSEI'S Titan theory is true, this one's also a stretch for the same reasons Knight is. All that's left is... Oh my god, he might be a thief. He doesn't fit in with the Darkners, and he doesn't fit in with the Lightners. He's an outsider to his own kingdom, and he has to take from other dark fountains in order to make his own more lively. He steals nothing for his own gain. He steals the misfortune of others and takes it upon himself. He steals the irrelevance of others and becomes yet more irrelevant in the eyes of the narrative. RALSEI'S seems like a complete enigma because he's been put in the role of a main character when what he really wants is to be part of nothing. He's had irrelevance stolen from him by the prophecy he worships, opposite to Kris's fight with the player over relevance and control of the plot in a story they never asked to be part of. Oh my fucking god, the prophecy is just 3 thieves in a trench coat! Let's flip this on this head. Let's flip this on its head and have a. I love recording audio.